Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome to 2026 in His grace and mercy. Ndate Tuto. We've missed you so much. How are you?
Well, thanks. Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be back. It's a new season and it's a new time that God has given us, and we look forward to many great things that God has in store for us and what this platform has to offer for our community.
Thank you. And I know you were traveling today, so we appreciate you, still making time after driving a long distance to give us your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So without any waste of time, I know we only have 1 hour. Let's open with a word of prayer and get straight into today's topic. And I'm sure people are also looking forward to taking notes. You see, I've brought my notebook and my pen because I know that usually when we are with you, there's a lot that we are going to get. So let us open with a word of prayer and let us start. Heavenly Father, we thank you, we bless you, we appreciate the gift of life bestowed on us. As we sit on the Enlightenment Corner tonight, we welcome you, Spirit of the living God, to give us insights, to open our eyes and our ears so that we may hear. And as we hear, we may be able to apply the new knowledge that we've gained into our lives to make ourselves better people, people that align to your purpose for us, oh God. We thank you, we honor you. And as Tuto speaks, Modimo a ka mule moya wa hae, o kopane le tse wena o mo romileng hore a di etse mo lefatsheng. Don't let him get tired, Modimo, of doing your work. We pray blessings on him and his family. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right. So today's topic is very interesting because I'm wondering, as a parent myself, do I have a right to say I am tired, of doing my parenting work? Am I allowed to get tired? Can parents say I'm fatigued by my role as a parent? Because in the workspace, that's why when you get tired, you apply for leave, right? You take a break. And in fact, we are encouraging people as employers to take leave, because when people are worn out and people are exhausted, it's dangerous. Emotionally, they are drained, they can make a lot of mistakes, but also it's not good for the body that you strain it and you just keep pushing yourself. Do we have the same rights as parents to say, hey, I am fatigued, I am exhausted?
That's why when you actually shared the topic, I was like, this is very perfect, because this is one side of the parenting story that we shy away from. We hardly talk about this, and yet it is a reality that affects most of the time negatively so many people. Number one, to respond to your question that you've just put on the platform now, it is normal for any person to be fatigued. If you can be fatigued at work, you can be fatigued also in your parenting. But this is one critical element that I want to bring across that will probably put a spanner in the works in this discussion. As much as you are allowed to be fatigued, one critical element that is important for us to consider is what causes us to be fatigued in parenting. It's a very critical aspect of our family structure, parenting. So it's important for us to understand what would be the cause, what would be the thing or things that cause us to be fatigued in parenting. Because parenting is an ongoing, journey. It's just an ongoing journey. It's unlike somebody who's fatigued at work. Because at work, it's easy to say, this organization is very much putting a strain on me. I will resign and look for another job and change environment. But with parenting, you can't say, I'm dumping my kids, I'm going to go look for other kids to parent. So the dynamics are completely different. So I want us to have that in mind, that as much as it is normal for somebody to be fatigued in parenting their kids, but it's a very difficult environment that it is not easy to abandon as you can do with your career or your business. If your business is putting a strain on you emotionally and mentally, it's easy for you to say, I'm going to sell this business and start another business. That does not put a strain on me emotionally. That does not, elevate fatigue in me. So it's important for us to consider that when we talk about parenting. But it's important also at the same time to rule out that it is possible to be fatigued.
Mm, mm,
Yeah.
mm. And what are the things maybe in your experience, and just to remind everyone who's listening, we are live on Sauma HD Radio, we are live on YouTube as well on Facebook, right? And everyone who's listening, I'm sure the question that then is asked is, what tires parents out in their role as parents? If it's a normal thing that once you have children, it's your responsibility, it's your duty, to take care of them, what then would tire you out in that?
You see, what I always encourage parents to do in my parent coaching sessions, Asfina, is this, and it's very critical. Parenting should not be a one-way street. What opens up a door for fatigue is when parenting is one-sided. It's when parenting becomes an institution that is applied or activated or becomes an exercise that is a responsibility of the parent. Once it takes that shape and form, that's where then the door of fatigue is open. Why am I saying that? Imagine if everything has to be done by you. If for the relationship of the child and the parent is borne by you alone, it becomes a problem, because you are the one who is stressed out, who will find themselves being overloaded with so many questions of what to do. Am I doing correctly? Am I still right? Am I still parenting the way that my children are enjoying me, being their parent? So you end up putting yourself in a box where you question a lot of the things about yourself and this parenting thing, whereas it should be reciprocated. So the first point of departure is to define the elements of this parenting.
Yeah.
If the elements of parenting are defined and structured well from the beginning, then we eliminate a very high degree of fatigue taking place in that kind of parenting environment. So the first thing that parents can do is to look and identify the elements that make up their parenting. Is your parenting reciprocative, or is your parenting a one-way street where it's giving instructions, it's you shouting, this is what must be done? There is no flow, what I normally call a positive power flow in parenting. One day probably I will share about that when I talk about a positive power flow, because a positive power flow is a system in relationship, in any relationship, but more especially I use it in parenting, where there is a flow of emotions, there's a flow of communication, there's a flow of all manner of contribution from both parties that are involved in parenting, not just the parent, himself or herself. So it's important for us to identify as parents, what are the elements that make up my parenting? From where you sit, with your kids, what are the elements that govern your parenting? And these elements, once you identify them, the next question is, which parties are involved or take part in these elements? Who are the people running the system? Who are the people who are involved in making sure that these elements or these power flows within this relationship, within this parenting environment? How involved are you? How involved are your children? What is the scale looking like? Because sometimes you find that it is you who is suggesting things, it is you who's giving instruction. There's no platform for your kids to even have a say. So you find that your scale, instead of it being balanced, it's now skewed, because there's too much of one side than the other side. That's why you will
Yeah.
start to find that the other side is pulling the other way and the other side is pulling the other way, because the power flow does not find balance. So the elements that make up our parenting are very critical. We need to identify and examine that.
Yeah.
Is this parenting environment conducive and feasible for both parties, for children and parents, to communicate, to all release and be able to participate, so that there is this flow in this relationship, in this environment? If that is
Yeah.
not present, that's when we start seeing signs and tiny little elements and contributors that push us to say, I'm tired of this, because I'm always telling them this and they're not doing it. But you never answer to ask yourself a question: why are they not doing it? Maybe I'm not giving them enough opportunity to voice out what they would like to do, or to voice out what they think, their opinions. And once I hear their opinions, then those opinions will then give me a direction that probably could work better for all of us, so that the power can flow and feed to all of us and elevate us together in unison as parent and
Yeah.
child. That does not happen, then we start finding ourselves in despair.
Yeah, I can hear a parent saying, there's no way I'm sharing power with my children, because, I think power is at the center of many relationships. When we look at abusive relationships, power is at the center, right? There's what we call power over, where somebody says, because I'm the one with the resources, I'm going to control how this relationship is going to work. Because for you to eat, it's me. For you to wear something, it's me. For you to go to school, it's me. So there's no sharing of anything there, because I'm in control. And you find that even if we are allowed to call it democratic space, is not created in a home where parents are able to negotiate with their children. They create a platform for negotiation. And I know in counseling, usually, when people go and say, hey, I have relationship problems, the first thing that you get asked is, what is your communication flow? How do you guys communicate? Do you get to sit down and unpack, things that make you unhappy in this relationship? And maybe it's something we must also extend to our children. We know that we must extend it to partners, to husbands, wives, spouses. But when it comes to children, there's that, hey, they must be told. How do we navigate? Because I believe it's one of the elements of parenting that you are referencing here, to say there must be something that is brought to the table where parent, child meet each other halfway. Because I'm sure even children are fatigued by us. In fact, without going on a long, very long, I know that suicidality amongst children is caused by relationships with parents, most of it. When children say, I am tired of living, I don't want to live anymore, at the center, it's parents, it's relationships, it's, peer pressure, but it's mostly parents, where children feel that my own parent has failed me, so who should love me? Who should take care of me? So yeah, I think that's one of the things that I see in the space where I'm in. And I'm wondering if parents are aware, and maybe how do we help parents be aware that, in fact, we are no longer being we can't parent, the way we were parented and the way our parents were parented, right? Because we've seen how that generational trauma has actually not helped us move beyond the boundaries that that trauma creates.
You see, the other thing now that comes into play, on the basis of what you are putting, now across is this, the definition of this power, because that's where sometimes we lose the meaning. And when we get to, implementing that, the flow of this power in our relationship with our children, and we find that automatically, because of the misdefinition of such power, then, when we start to implement such flows in the relationship with our children, it's already incorrect. It's already rubbing the children or other parties the wrong direction. It's important for us to understand that when we talk about positive power flow, we're not talking about power to exert control or power to rule over our children, but we are talking about positive energy. We're talking about positive flow of energy. How connected are we to each other so that we can work together, so that I can be able to give guidance to my children in a form of parenting and they can be able to access. Because remember, when I say there must be a reciprocation that takes place, parenting is about us being shepherds to our children. It's about us giving guidance, helping them with things that will help them to grow, to shape them to become better individuals, to shape their minds, to shape the way they think, the way they do things, the way they perceive things. But that does not necessarily mean that we have to control what they think of or what they think, what perceptions they hold. You know, they have a freedom of expression in that regard to see things the way they want to see them. But we have to play a role of making sure that we are the positive influence that will guide them so that they do not lose the direction that they need to be taking so that they become better individuals. So this power we're talking about must not be misinterpreted. That's where most parents miss it. To draw the line to say, when we talk about positive power flow, I will not be told by a child. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about you being instructed by a child, but we're talking about you being open enough that you can dish out positive energy to your children, and that positive energy can be accepted and can be utilized, because that's what we want. We want to be able to share information with our children that will be acceptable to them, and we will find joy in seeing them consuming the type of information and exposure and guidance that we give to them. I remember we spoke about a couple of other subjects, and I remember one time mentioning that one of the greatest difficulties in parenting today is the reality. I think we were talking about, the kind of Generation Z, Generation X, and all that. And I was describing how all of them are being impacted and how the environment that they are exposed to is playing a very pivotal role in shaping their minds, the choices, the decisions that they even make, with their lives. And that is what we are contending against as parents. It's a reality. We are contending against an environment that exposes our children to things that we cannot control. So our parenting must be structured in a sense that, or in a way that it permits for this flow, that we acknowledge that there are certain elements and certain players in the environment that we cannot do away with. Our children are exposed to the internet. They're exposed to different information. They spend less time with us and more time on the internet and exposed to such kind of things. But the drawing line should be, Asfina, how do we then as parents, to avoid getting to the stage of fatigue, how do we allow or activate this positive power flow that in the midst of such an environment that our children are exposed to, they are still able to find pleasure in spending time with us? That's number one. They still find pleasure in connecting and communicating with us, because those two things are the things that permit you then to say, then I can then communicate or activate this system that dishes out a flow of energy the way that I would like my children to be, or to be shaped, or dish out the kind of form that I want them to take. But if the communication and the connection does not exist, it becomes then difficult, because now our perception of this positive power flow is misconceived. And if it's misconceived, then it creates havoc that we can't even connect. And when we can't connect, we will not be able to communicate. And if we can't communicate, then fatigue kicks in, because you'll be saying this and they'll be rejecting you. You'll be doing this and they'll be rejecting it. You'll be saying recommendations of this nature and of that nature, and they will come up with their own ideologies. And that begins to frustrate you. And it begins to make you now drift far apart from each other. And when you drift far apart from each other, you get to a level as a parent, and I've seen it with many parents. You've mutswadi angalang ngwana hae. I don't know, you know what? Now I'm tired of this one. And mostly it's parents to teenagers. I'm tired of this one. I'm tired. Let them do whatever they want to do. That's fatigue kicking in because you are frustrated with what can I do with this child? I can't get through to them. Because I can't get through to them, then the easiest way out for you is to say, let them do whatever they want to do. That's fatigue because now it's going to build up and build up and build up and build up. And then when it builds up, and this is a sad part about fatigue in parenting, it becomes resentment from both parties. You'd find that because of the build-up, your child begins or get to a point where they resent you. Because as much as you are irritated by the fact that they are rejecting instruction, they are rejecting guidance, they are also mounting up and building up this resentment on the basis of the fact that they don't care about me. I've been coaching a number of kids, having sessions where you ask them and they will say, she doesn't care about me. And you ask, why? What makes you say and think she doesn't care? And they will dish it out for you. She doesn't ask me how I'm doing. She never cared to ask how my day was. She doesn't know what's going on in my life. I'm going through 1, 2, 3, and she or he doesn't even know. And you ask them, but how come she doesn't know those kind of things? No, we don't talk. We fought. And after we fought, or we had a misunderstanding, and after we had a misunderstanding, she doesn't talk to me. She just goes on her life. She drops me off at school, and that's it, and that's it. So those environments that are created by lack of proper flow of positive energy, proper flow of stable and healthy communication, a proper connection, a proper bond between parent and child, lack of those elements, create or a platform for then this thing to chip in. And if it grows, it becomes resentment. After resentment, it becomes fatigue. We start hating each other.
Sure. So could parents be justified by the fact that they work hard, they spend 8 hours in a very charged environment, work is stressful, right? And so when you get home, honestly, you are so exhausted because you've had to deal with one crisis after another. Can we hide behind that, or as parents? Or are you saying even with that, because you keep talking about systems, and in systems thinking there's an ecology, right? There's one thing that is dependent on another that is also dependent on another, and it goes that way. There's interdependence, and where different parts become the sum of a whole. So what should we do as parents if on one hand we are dealing with these hostile, very stressful work environments, and then on the one other side you have expectations from children who says, spend time with me, sit with me, talk to me every day. How do we navigate that to avoid fatigue on both sides, but also resentment, which ends up being, I hate you, because I would not want as a parent to ever hear those words coming out of my child's mouth.
Asfina, there is one thing that I'm busy writing on this thing currently. Timing in parenting. That is one critical aspect that is underrated. And I will say this, not being what, lack of a better word, I don't want to appear as a person who is I've seen, let me put it this way, I've seen it with our white counterparts. Our white counterparts are very good in parenting, and I will tell you why. I want to draw you to 2 stages of parenting. If you look at the white community, right? If you look at their children when they're still small, and you look at the behavior of their children when they're still small, and the behavior of their children when they are now independent, go and check how much of so many of them have very strong relationships with their parents, even when they are married. Their parents are like their mentors. Some, they even tell you verbally that my dad is my mentor. If I'm going to spend money, even when they're working, they've got their own households, they've got their own families. If they're going to spend money, they would go and ask their dad, I'm planning on starting a business like this and like this. What do you suggest? What can you tell me? And why am I going you to those two stages? Timing. It's very important that certain aspects of our relationships are developed at the right time. The bonding and the communication are critical. And that's what I'm preaching in my parenting sessions with so many parents, that don't wait until your children are teenagers for you to start, because many of us make a mistake of thinking that we cannot form bonds and establish healthy lines of communication with our children and establish relationships on time with our children, because establishing them on time then permits us, or it gives way for us to be able to talk about just about anything. Your pressure at work should not and will not become an excuse if your relationship with your child is healthy, if your bond with the child is there, if you and your child can communicate healthily together. If those three aspects do not exist and were not formulated at the right time, we will struggle when we start seeing such pressures of life mounting over us. We will start to say and would start to sound like what you've just put on the table, where we start to say, they get everything they want. I'm working hard for them, so I'm tired. They have to understand. It doesn't have to be like that. They don't have anything to understand. You still have your role to play, and you are expected to play it. You need to play it and play it well in that manner. But for you to be able to succeed, even when those pressures are there, it's your communication. When did you form it? When did you form that bond? That relationship with them, do you have it? Because I've seen it. It's a trend currently. Many parents are fighting at teenage age of our children, fighting very hard to form a relationship. Very, very hard. And at the time, in terms of child development, at the age when they are like 10, 11, 12, they're exploring. They're drifting away from you. They're no longer clinging to you. At 10, 11, I've seen it with my daughter. She's turning 10 this year. There's certain things she even tells me, that one I can do by myself. You don't have to tell me. She tells me, she's 9. Now she has the confidence of telling me, no, this one, I don't need your opinion. And I'm thinking, what is this girl telling me? And I have to understand, that's the stage where they're beginning to get perceptions of their own. That's a stage where they're beginning to see things, they're beginning to, create a little understanding around things that they see. And they want to interpret them in their own way. And they want to have an experience with those things in their own way. So you need to know as a parent when to establish that relationship, when to create that bond, and when to create those stable lines of communication, so that when that time comes, when you find yourself in trouble, in challenge, in finding yourself under pressure, you can be able to communicate and talk about these things. There are parents who have, who have coached with their kids, and by God's grace, in my upcoming family podcasts, I'm going to be inviting families like that. Those families I've interacted with, where those families are so open, so nicely with their kids, that their youngest daughters know that my dad is working, is doing this 1, 2, 3, and his job is pressure. He's got a lot of pressure, and they understand each other. And why is that? Because the parents created that environment where they talk about anything. Their kids know what they're going through. Their kids know the type of work they do, and they don't come and become pressure themselves to their parents. But it becomes a common thing. It becomes a platform at home where we understand each other. There is healthy communication in the family, and that is what is important to avoid ourselves using pressures of life as a reason for us not to parent, or as a reason for us to say we can't parent well because of 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. And I'm sure many people receive criticism because you are talking about, the white counterparts. I'm one of the people who are very liberal as a parent. I don't allow my kids to get away with things, but I allow them to be their own person, because I believe that, they should also carve out their own path and journey. So from a very young age, I've let them decide. So we decide together, here's a budget, here's how much I have, how do we split it, so that they know when I say this I can afford, this I can afford. I've been transparent. They know that mama earns 10 rand, and already this is going to school fees. So it means what is left is this. So I've never had the pressures of, hey, we demand brands, because they understood that change anything can buy us brands. So whatever that we are going to get, we will accept it, and so brands would become rewards for hard work, especially academically, because I would force myself to say, let me also be that parent that can buy, that brand for my child, right? But you receive a lot of criticism for following that route. Hey, the influencer ke makgowa man, the influencer ke European things, batho ba bantsho, we don't do these things, right? And so you navigate the space where you're not sure whether you should continue that way, or you should just follow your own heart and say, I want to parent this way. It works for me. I see that it gives my children liberty to be themselves and not afraid to ask, So you are not going to give them or restrict them from asking questions, So even as you navigate relationships, right, where you have breakups, maybe with their father or whatever, it's easy to sit them down and say, guys, you've seen, we've tried, it didn't work. And so we are not enemies, but we can't continue on this journey. And they say, no, it's fine. In fact, you can continue this way, he can continue that way. We are still your children. And it doesn't then break them as hard as you trying to protect them and not sharing or even engaging in conversations, because we are thinking, oh no, we need to protect them. And they are observing, they are seeing, and if they were asked, they would have asked you to leave a long time ago. But because you are trying to protect them, you stay in this relationship that is breaking them, that is hurting them, and then they build resentment because they're thinking, you enjoy this, as you stay in this thing, you are enjoying this and it's hurting us, So I've seen many sides of how it can work, and how even when it works, some people don't receive it as something that we can explore. In fact, you receive criticism for being too wide.
See, that's the thing. What I always encourage parents to do is this: always try to establish and build a system that will work for you and your children. The destination that you want to take your children is not the same as the destination I want to take my children. So I cannot take a blueprint of your system and come and implement it in the lives of my children. Because the coordinates of our environments are completely different. Our narrative, your background narrative are completely different. Our future projections are completely different. But I can take certain elements from your system that I see are relevant to the direction that I want to take. So I think it's important for parents to build those systems that are tailor-made for them and for their children. Because a system that you implement in parenting your children, number one, it must fit to two things. It must be a system that is comfortable, that is easy for you to implement, that does not put a strain on you. And it must also be a system that does not put a strain on your children, does not harm them. It makes it easy for them to get across or come across to your platform, to access you, to listen to you, to talk to you, to take counsel and instruction from you. So you build that system for yourself, and on the basis of the elements that are critical for the destiny that you want to take your children and that you want to take this family. So it doesn't matter what people think. It doesn't matter what people say with their opinions, or because people are opinionated. People are allowed to think whatever they want to think, and conceptualize whatever ideology they want to conceptualize about you. But if that system works for you, or if a nugget or an element from that system, for instance, from white people, that you see and identify that this is really good, I can implement and it can help my children, it can help this family, it can become a very integral part of my parenting. Take that element, talk about it, put it before your children, start implementing it, and see what you can get out of it. So for me, it's important for parents not to look, and this is another thing. I remember when I was coaching a particular parent about a comparing syndrome. I once coached a parent who destroyed a relationship with their children because every time they compared their children to their friends' children. Mama. You know, she listens to her parents. You don't listen. She takes instruction. You don't. So that was as a result of lack of individualized system and pattern that we articulate as parents, and we are clear about that particular system and where it should take us with our children. So it's important for every parent to take this upon themselves to say, I'm going to go back home tonight and sit and look at the system that is in place in parenting my children. How is my relationship with my children? How is my bond with my children? How is our communication? Those three elements, just focus only on those three. If you can establish those three and intensify them and make sure that they are very healthy, they are very stable, you would find yourself in a position where there is nothing difficult for you to communicate with your children. There is nothing difficult for your children to communicate with you. You and your children can be in one environment and enjoy each other. You and your children can find a place where you meet together, where you find consensus. There are no boundaries or barriers that work against you or your children, where you find yourself. Now we're going back to the same point we spoke about in the beginning, where you feel like ngwana ke ngwana, motswadi ke motswadi. There are certain instances, in fact, a greater part of our parenting journey must destroy those elements, must destroy those walls, because it is through those separating walls that we then find difficulty in building each other or even building our children, because we build this barrier that says they are children, I'm a parent, they cannot talk to me. Some parents can't even joke with their kids. Can't even crack a joke. Why? Because you built this wall. Your system built a wall that mama. Mama doesn't take a joke. Mama doesn't smile. You can't, your child can't come and say, let's watch a movie, a funny movie, you laugh with your child. You can't. Your child can't even invite, there are parents who can't even go to their kids' school when their kids are playing, even when they are available, because of the wall that they've built. There's no bond, there's no relationship. They must just take instruction and do as I tell them. But there is nothing that says I must be involved in what they like. I must be involved in the things that make them happy, things that they are interested in. I must be interested myself as a parent, so that I can establish and strengthen the relationship and the bond with them. Those things don't exist, and there's a wall. We'll find it hard. And those are the same things that lead us to fatigue.
Yeah, I think we are hearing it loud and clear. We need to be a safe space for our children to run to us first before they run to anyone else. They should trust me with whatever life decision. They should trust me with whatever life challenge that they are facing. They should know that, you know, haki yako mama or haki yako papa, I'm going to somebody who's going to, one, listen, who's going to see the perspective eketlang ka yona, but also who's going to, even if they differ with me, offer me sound advice, you know, because I cannot afford to make a mistake, or but that's not how it goes out there. You know, many relationships are sitting where children are saying, my parents don't know me, they don't care, they don't even ask how school is going, they don't even know what's happening, and I won't bother telling them, because even if I share, it doesn't change anything, you know, it remains there. So you spoke about timing, and I don't know what are the tools then that parents must utilize for them to know that the timing is perfect or the timing is right. Like you said, we don't have to wait, right? Abe 12 funyana, abe 15 ikona re tla startang to talk about these things, what are those age-appropriate tools that we can start applying? Because, of course, a 5-year-old will definitely not be the same as a 15-year-old. How do you build that foundation that even at 5, they start being comfortable and up until they are married, like you were giving an example, and they still trust you to give sound advice, even when they are family men, family women themselves?
I think the point of departure is parents must start being interested in what makes their children happy from a very early age. You watch your child growing up. You watch that your child likes playing. Your child likes, playing outside. Your child likes video games. I'm just making hypothetical examples. Start being interested in those things. Use those tiny little things to get close to them. By getting close to them, you are saying to them, I'm here for you anytime and I'm interested in you. And the more they connect to that feeling and that sentiment, the more they open up to you. So children open up to you and you become a safe space for them immediately when the sentiment connects to them. The problem with our parents or parenting today or parents today is we do not express our sentiment towards our children enough that the sentiment can be sold out to them and they can connect to us through that sentiment. And that's how bonds are established. So for me, the point of departure is there. What are the things that interest your children? Be interested in your children. I used to say this, make some time for your children. Make some time for them. What are the things that you see them do quite often? Start getting involved in such kind of things. Because by getting involved in those things with them, you're establishing a connection, you're establishing a bond. And it is through that bond that you can be able to communicate critical things about life. And once you are able to get across to them, then you have won the battle. You have won the battle. Because parenting, in a nutshell, Asfina, it's communicating information that shape our children so that they can become better people. In my own definition, parenting is communicating information that we intend for that information to shape our children to becoming better people. That's what parenting is about. So if you don't have the line to communicate such information, you are doomed. Unfortunately, you will have it hard. And that line is established through bonds. And those bonds can be built at any given point in time. But you need to know how to build those bonds. I've seen parents at struggling with their teenagers. They missed out on building bonds and relationships and connections at the right time when the kids were still young. Now they are trying when the kids are 14, 15. They're trying. And there's no harm in trying. There's nothing wrong with that. But I've seen how many parents are doing it incorrectly because now they are forcing it. And the way they are forcing it upon our children, once you force it on a teenager, the teenager will break away from you. The best way to do it when your child is a teenager is to look deeply at the things that they like. Look deeply. If they like going out, like a teenager that is 15, it's a teenager that now has a budget. Unfortunately, we live in such times where our children have a budget. So they have a budget. They go out with friends for drinks, for coffee. They meet up when there's a sport at school and all. Those are the things that teenagers do. So the best way to establish a bond and a communication and a connection with a child that you missed to establish at the right time is to use things like that. If you realize that your teenager likes going out, they like shopping, make sure that probably occasionally you create that budget just for the two of you to go shopping because there's something that they like. It doesn't have to be shopping of expensive things, but use that platform of things that they're interested in doing to connect yourself to them. And once that sentiment gets across to them, they will open up to you because the key and the trick is getting them to open up to you. Once they open up to you and they receive this sentiment, this emotion, this ideology, this desire that you have and in the interest you have in them, once they receive it and they acknowledge it and they recognize it, you've got your way, then the relationship can start. Then communicating information that is critical in shaping them becomes easier. So it's finding that connecting point. It doesn't matter whether you've missed it. We don't want to close it down, Asfina, and say parents missed out to do that and build bonds with their children growing up. They can't do it when they are teenagers. No, you can. But you've got to find that connecting point, that hook. Find that hook. There's a hooking point. What are the things that they're interested in? And don't impose yourself in them, because you can see sometimes you can try this and you can see you're being rejected. Immediately you see that they're rejecting that. Don't impose, don't try hard. Withdraw. Look for another one. You will find that one connecting point. Once you find it, hook to it, and that will be your winning card.
How do we give parents feedback? Because as you are talking, I'm thinking of, some of the parents that I know that even when it's verbalized to say, I would love for us to have this type of a relationship by the children, right? They see that, no, the way I'm doing it is right. There's no need to change anything, right? I'm correct in my parenting. It's just that you are an ungrateful child. You don't appreciate. But the child is verbalizing that, hey, yes, I see A, B, C, and D, but this area is not what I would love to see in our relationship. I would prefer this. And you are saying, why change? Because whatever it is here works perfectly fine. How do we then give these parents feedback? Because you can see that they are losing the relationship with these children. And probably they don't see it, or if they see it, they don't care because they feel that whatever I'm doing is enough.
Well, thank you for giving me a platform to market myself. I exist for such reason. I exist for such reason. That was my inspiration behind parent coaching, because I wanted to create an environment and a platform where parents can come and get information and guidance, but more especially information about the trends that they might not be aware that exist out there, the kind of mindset that the current child carries, the type of projection, perceptions that our children carry, because that's where the problem is. Many parents don't understand their children. They don't even understand the type of generation that we are raising. And when you don't understand the type of generation that you are raising, you will make so many mistakes that will lead to conflict. And some conflicts are irreconcilable. They have led to resentment, they've led to hatred, they've led to parents and child being at loggerheads. Right? There are certain parents that they are no longer bringing up their children are brought up by their grandmothers. They are no longer, because they said, I cannot bring up this child. Abamu surrender to your own mother. Imagine I surrender my kids to my mom and say, look, because, and it's because we fail to understand. So the most critical, response I can give to that, Asfina, is every parent must invest in understanding their children. Every parent must invest. And the sad reality, and it's one of the things I always share with moms when I do, there are meetings that I normally do on quarterly basis. I'm hoping this year I'm going to be able to do them on monthly basis, which are called Unlocking the Code for Single Moms. I meet with single moms sometimes it's 5-10 moms. We sit around and we have discussions about parenting, the challenges they are faced with, and I answer certain questions and so forth and so and like that. So what I would respond, in mentioning that, using that, is to say that it's very painful to think that when we meet as single moms or moms and dads, we talk about how to make money. We talk about how to grow in our career. We talk about, how to start those businesses, but we hardly talk about how best we can bring up our children. We hardly talk about the challenges that each one of us face with each one of our children. I'm finding that my child is stubborn. Is your child stubborn? What did you do when you encountered such stubbornness? How did you communicate your concerns? And think, we don't talk about such, in detail. And I would encourage parents to, find other parents who you can sincerely, from the bottom of your heart, discuss such issues with sincerity. Just have discussions around there. I've got teenagers. I've identified that, oh, this one, no. Boyfriend, look at the phone calls, that. How did you deal with that? Oh, I shouted at them. I confiscated the phone. You understand? Instead of saying, hey, why these days you've changed? You no longer talk in front of us. There's certain phone calls you talk in front of, like, what's happening? Are you seeing someone? Are you having private conversations? What type of conversation? With that, you understand what I'm saying? And we learn different approaches from those conversations, and we discover certain truths we never knew from those conversations. But if we don't discuss these things with like-minded people, with other parents, we will never know. And we will never find solutions that would work for us in troubles or challenges that we are faced with at that present moment in time. So it's important. I think let's talk about this. Find people as a parent, find a person or find a friend that you make time and be intentional about it and say, friend, let's make some time once or twice a month. Let's talk about our parenting. Let's talk about our struggles in parenting. Let's talk about the challenges that we're faced with in our parenting. Let's talk about what is it that our children are doing that we don't understand. If we, the both of us, cannot find, a solution, where can we get a solution? Let's call Tuto. He's a parenting coach. Let's have a session with him. Let's discuss this thing. Let's get more information so that we can have an understanding that will, enable us to come to a conclusion of what type of interventions can we bring, in place to mitigate that. So important discussions, get people to talk about these things openly, and also different approach. When you see things that are odd with your children, think about the approach first before you implement. Do you really need to shout, or you need to have a conversation? Maybe you might get much from conversations than confrontations.
Yeah. And stop problematizing your children. Maybe the problem is actually you and not the children per se. Because we tend to look at them as how or all the other things that we say. Of course, always when we have good time and when we are learning a lot, time decides to be an enemy. So I just wanted us to summarize what we are actually saying. We started the topic by saying, can a parent really be fatigued by this role? And you've unpacked the many ways in which, parents can find themselves being fatigued. But at the core of all that is how they parent, right? Because if you parent in a certain way, you are already digging yourself a fatigue hole that will trap you, and you'll find yourself drowning in that emotional baggage that you are also helping to create. But you spoke about many tools that parents can include in their parenting. You spoke about elements of parenting, right? Where things are reciprocated, where a relationship is, when your child has done wrong, talk about it, not necessarily shouting at them, but making them understand why, from your perspective, that thing is wrong and why it should not be done again, right? You spoke about positive power flow, this energy that should flow between children and their parents, so that it's not hard for children to say, but mama, you know what, this is what I'm going through. Or mama, this is how you made me feel. They should not be afraid to call us out on the things we do wrong as parents. But again, the environment we create for our children and our relationship with them is very key, because that environment will determine the type of person this child becomes in society, because they're naturally going to carry this being valued, being listened to, being given a platform out there, right? So they won't necessarily be people that people can walk over or easily abuse, because they'll be able to voice how they feel about issues. But key was the thing that you called timing in parenting. If we start late, if we think we'll catch them up later, we'll start bonding, or that's when I'll start giving them. That's why the things where parents give children the key. because now that's when they are saying you are now of age to ask questions or to do something. Baufiles kia as permission. Yet all along you were a non-existing person. You didn't have a right to even ask anything. But now we make this big party, we give you a key, and we are saying now you are an adult. Yet in that you are a broken adult, because as a parent, I didn't create an environment that helps shape you. That is why your definition of parenting is that we are communicating information that shape our children. It molds them into these people that we would love to see. Any last input from you? I think I've done a good summary of
You've
what you
done
were
a
saying.
brilliant summary. It's a brilliant summary. To add to your summary, this is what I want to add. If parents want to deal with fatigue, three key things. Three key things. One, prioritize mental and emotional health wellness for yourself. You've got to accept the fact that we made. Accept it. If you feel fatigued, the first thing that you need to do is accept it and tell yourself and accept it and say, I'm fatigued. I'm overly burdened. I feel like parenting, these kids has become a burden. It's become a very heavy burden on me. Secondly, after acknowledging that, make sure that you prioritize mental and emotional wellness, right? Once you prioritize that, you need to write down and identify things that will help lift you in those two key areas. What are the things that will lift me emotionally? What are the things that will lift me mentally? Connect yourself to positive energy. Connect yourself to people who will pour to you positive perceptions and perspective about life. Go to the gym, take yourself out and give yourself a pat in the shoulder and say, even though you feel burdened, but you've made it this far, you've managed to take care of these kids up till they are this age. Give yourself some credit. That's how you take care of dealing with fatigue. Give yourself those medals and say, look, as much as I feel like it's heavy, as much as I feel like I'm not winning, but I'm winning or I've won in one way or the other. They have grown. Yeah. They have grown. So you've got to do that. And the last one is take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. There is a tendency of many parents that they get attacked by the mind of giving up. And when they get attacked by the mind of giving up, you can see it. You don't have to ask a person or a parent who is given up. You can see it because they drop themselves, they drop their mindsets, they drop their perception, they drop everything. Even their language changes. Even there's no dreaming, there's no aspiration, there's no inspiration, there is no positive outlook. Everything just gets flooded away. So it's important. Accept that you are overly burdened. Focus on your mental and emotional wellness. What are the things that makes you tick? What are the things that will lift you? People, things, people and things, people and things. And start connecting yourself to those people. Start connecting yourself to those things that will bring positive flow towards you, things that will energize you, things that will encourage you. And once you've done that, project it, go back again. Give yourself a pat in the shoulder and the back and say, look, I've done it. And I'm going to go back to it again.
Thank you very much. And you've heard it for yourself from the team that is wearing black and white today. It was not by design, but yeah. I think we've heard it, and we appreciate this platform for this kind of nuggets where, you can come to a school where you are taught how to be a better parent. There's no manual, so that is why it's good to be taught, to be given some ways, alternative ways. Maybe your ways work to an extent, but there are better ways that can push your children further than how you are able to push them. And of course, we are not judging. All of us are doing the best with what we have or how we were taught, So that's why platforms like this, and maybe you need to open it up to fathers as well. those single mothers. There are single fathers out there. Let me advocate for them to also be given lessons on how to parent, because we always say, "Kibona the problem." So
Yeah.
maybe they need classes. But let me thank you for your time and thank everyone who joined us this evening. This is Enlightenment Corner on In His Grace and Mercy, and it is supported fully by Sauma HD Radio. And whoever is listening, these are the type of things we must share. These kind of topics must be shared widely so that people can be empowered. Let us close with a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for this beautiful moment you have given us. To learn, oh God, to be empowered and to teach, your people on things that can help them improve themselves as well as their families. We say families matter because they matter to you as well, God. And we thank you that people like Tuto are available to give of their gifts freely and to make sure that all of us are empowered. May we take this empowerment, this enlightenment, and spread it everywhere we go so that we have children who are empowered, parents who are empowered, and families that thrive. We honor you, we exalt you, we give you all the glory. Amen.
Amen.
As usual, lovely session. Looking forward to the next one. Go and rest. Thank you very much and see you next time. Good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.